here, the way I teach these three tabs, these are the kind of the three crucial tabs in the system. Class categories, training code categories, and training codes. And the analogy that I use here is this. Training 3 is like the trunk of the tree, the trunk of the tree. The first big branch is class categories. You want to keep this fairly broad. You don't need to drill down into specific class titles, things like that. You want to keep it pretty broad. This one may even be a little too broad. When Johnny shows you his account, he'll talk to you about how he set his up. But this is a relatively small list, and it's core, big picture, captures all the classes like administration, firefighter training, fire officer training, prevention department. That's what happens. That's what happens here. Keeping it broad, keeping it simple. I've even suggested that you break hazardous materials and technical rescue into special operations, and then here in the training code category. So think of the tree. So, or if you're thinking incident command, NIMS, this is the strategic level. This is the big picture, broad stuff, top of the chart. Okay. Then moving down into the smaller branches or down into the hierarchy of the NIMS ICS model, you've got training codes. This would be the tactical level or the smaller branches where you can now, every one of these essentially points back to a class category. And ours, you can see our demo account is pretty rudimentary. When Chris shows you his and when Johnny shows you his, it'll be I'll have them take a quick peek and you can see theirs when they're presenting. But this is where you're going to get into more detail, more specifics. The next one is the task level, or the branches with the leaves on it. You can see here on this table it branches back to category, which is training code category. So everything that was here is going to appear in this column here. And this is where you can put core objectives of the class, but what I found to be pretty successful is that you put key components or actual classes themselves here. For example, if you're doing EMS certifications for National Registry, you can put in, it goes back to EMS training in the class category. In the training code category, it's EMS certifications. And then here in the code, it is going to be the specific. So in this case, we've got National Registry, mandatory airway breathing and cardiology. So then you'll know when you add these training codes to a class, and we're going to do all that next week, when you add that to the class, it'll be part of that class, and you're going to see how fast you can create templates. And then when you have to go actually create a class, say you have monthly continuing education for EMS, for example, monthly fire training, you can create the class in a few clicks based on the template. So then all you have to do is change the instructor, maybe change the location, and you've got a class built and ready to go. You can also do recurring classes, and again, we're going to save that for next week. This is where you get much more detailed. So you got the tree that's called Training 3.0. Biggest branches are class categories. Then they move into the smaller branches, which are training code categories, and then you've got the training codes themselves, which are the branches with leaves, or strategic, tactical, task level, if you want to use the kind of the NIMS model. So are there any questions on that? I know I went through it pretty quickly, but if you've got those big picture concepts about how to set this up and then see these two accounts I'm going to show you in a little bit, you'll get an idea of perhaps how you might want to set yours up as well. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions. Let me just make sure. Okay, good. Very good. There is a question about JPRs. Yes, I will get to that momentarily, Matt. We'll talk a little bit about JPRs. It's not live in our system yet, but I will touch base on it in just a few. And Josh and Matt or Mark may be able to put a few comments to that as well. The next tab, I guess I probably should show you. Getting a little bit ahead of myself. It's so simple. I probably simply forgot to show you. When you're going to add a class category, it's this simple. You name it, you describe it, and it will populate drop-downs within the training module. And they're both required fields. Training codes, same thing, basically the same set of fields. training or the training code categories, training codes. You remember going back on the branches, it's going to um, jump over to the training code categories. You pick one of those, title the code, and describe it. Okay. Next up, locations. This is going to be any place that you have training. So it can be your stations, it can be community college, it can be universities, it can be a public safety fire academy if you have something like that, a big drill ground. And what this allows you to do, and if you stay with me for next week, you'll see where all of these populate in an actual class. And it allows you to pull reports then on where you've had training as well. And when your troops log in to go do training, or if you want them to participate in a class, when they go to the training grid and see that this is a scheduled class, they'll see where the location is as well. And again, very straightforward, very simple in adding, just like the other fields. So the real challenge here is just understanding those first three tabs and then taking the time to do all the data entry to set this module up. But it's a pretty straightforward module, and then once we get into the grid, you can see its versatility. Resources. This tab, and you can build this one to your heart's content as well. I think it's a really good tab to have because you, as a training officer, may not always be the one doing the training. You're going to be delegating that. So you send someone out that, hey, we're going to go do a minimum company standard or state required testing on, an 1 3/4 supply, 1 3/4 attack with supply, up a second story. So you can then have different resources built in here from classroom based, like I show you here on video projector, or that's the only one I've got for classroom based here is video projector. But then we've got a training hydrant, we've got 200 feet of 1 3/4 hose. So whoever's doing the training, when they go see, or you schedule the class for them from a template, they can see everything you expect them to have at that drill site. It's kind of a checklist for what you need to get set up, and I think it can come in really handy if you take the time to build it. And all this talk about templates and classes, I will address in detail next week. The next tab is task sheet categories, and these are the categories for your task sheets. So any place in your system, in your organization, in your state, where there are task sheets, and those kind of can be, this is answering Matt's question, a lot of times JPRs are often, not always, but often task sheet based. So you can integrate your JPRs here with the task sheet categories. We've got these categories pretty broad, but I know like in Colorado, where we just taught, they have very explicit JPRs that they have to form and complete each year, if I'm not mistaken. So you can create a category if you're in Colorado, Colorado State JPRs. And these are just categories. And again, very simple data entry here to create those categories. And this is where it becomes fun, here in the task sheet settings. At the task sheet settings, you can add the actual task sheets. Now, we talked a lot about this. I've talked about this with a lot of customers, and even in Colorado. What I found can be very successful. Like here, I've got for emergency medical, I've got the National Registry skill sheet for patient assessment and management. I'm going to click on it, and it is going to open up in the PDF. It's loaded as a PDF, and that sheet is there. What you can do is you've got this actual sheet in your system, and you can add these to a specific class. So these aren't just a nice table that you got to go and pick from, because many departments are going to probably have 100 of these. You can actually add them to a specific class that you create, or a class template, and they're going to be there when you go and actually create the class itself. So you've got some pretty neat opportunities here. And what you can do is, a lot of times when we're out testing, often you'll either have an electronic PDF form fillable, or you're going to have an actual sheet that you're going to print out. You can print that out, and then once the student completes it, you can actually scan, take a picture of, upload the completed task sheet, and have that part of the class record. So you need to go back, hey, I lost my skill sheet for patient assessment and management. Guess what? It's loaded electronically into that actual class down the road. And there's no limit to how many of these you can put in for a particular class. The general settings button is These bottom two are going to be coming up soon when we'll have the ability to have master task sheets for regions and for states and for master codes. That's not in our system yet, so we won't worry too much about it. But this, if you track hours by training code, it gives you the ability to assign the class by training code. In other words, say you want to cover 2 or 3 training codes for the class. You're going to do a ventilation, but you're going to have some codes in there for ladders. You're going to have some codes in there for maybe positive pressure ventilation. If the class is a 5-hour class, you can break that up by training code. So 2.5 covered maybe ladder raises, and another 2.5 covered setting up fans for PPV. You can do that here, and that allows you to adjust the time frame of the class adjust the time frame of the class by the training codes, and I'll show you that next week. But if you have that checked, I'll show it to you next week both with it checked and with it not checked, so that'll make really good sense to you. Last but not least, before I turn this over to Chris to talk a little bit about his experience, is the standards. Okay, here is where you can add actual standards. It's okay if you have some of these already built in training codes. No harm, no foul. You can have them in both places. But what this allows you to do, and as we generate more reports, say you want to add a standard to a class, just like you would add a training code to a class, but you're adding standards. And this class is going to account for 1 hour of company training at fire stations, and we know for ISO we need 16 hours per member per month. It's going to allow you, as we build, and we already have one report in the system, but as we build more reports, to generate a report on standard. ISO comes to town, they want to see how many hours your members have trained on this particular standard that they're going to look at. You can pull up a report, very quickly using the ability to add standards. And one of the next tabs you're going to see is the ability to add JPRs, which are job performance requirements. So you're going to be able to integrate both of these into each training class and be able to pull reports from each of them. So both internally for tracking and then also externally if you're going for accreditation or if your ISO's coming or you have state requirements. Really, anytime where you've got to report to either internally, someone to your chief or your board of directors internally, city council, or you have to report externally when you're going through an accreditation process or looking to change your ISO standard. These tools are going to be able to help you do that. It's much faster than before. So with that, I am going to transfer the presentation over to Chris. Chris is our newest regional trainer. He hails from Cripple Creek, Colorado. And if you give me just a moment, I'm going to go ahead and toggle that over, make him the presenter, so you're going to see his screen. Okay, Chris, can you hear me okay? Make sure Chris can hear me okay.
All right, can you hear me?
Yep, sure can, Chris. That's fantastic. All right, I'm going to make you the presenter and make sure people can see your screen. They definitely can hear you. And I'm going to have you take it away and talk a little bit about the things that you encountered coming from training 2 to 3. And I think what'll be better is if you do it first, and then I'll talk about some of the things they need to keep in mind if they're deciding to when they decide to migrate, because eventually all of our customers are going to migrate.
Got it.
All right. You have the con, sir.
Okay, so it looks like I got my home screen here. How's everybody going? How's everybody doing? Good? I can't hear anybody else, but that's good.
Go ahead and make sure you're sharing your screen right now, because I'm seeing just the welcome page. There you are. Perfect. You got it, Chris.
All right, we got a little bit of a delay here. So when we jump into this training 2.0 versus 3.0, we just made our change, actually, when I was at the Golden Regional Training class. Going through this with Tom and seeing kind of what training 3.0 can do and hearing that we need to make that switch kind of pushed me over the edge and made us do it. What I did ask is we are getting ready to do our ISO audit, so I didn't want to lose our training 2.0 and go straight into training 3.0 because there are a few little differences there. The class was great. It definitely made me feel more comfortable. It helped me definitely being a visual learner. It helped me get in there and actually do a few things and have Tom right there to help me out. Great to have that versus the virtual set self-teaching module. If you look over here on training 2.0, if it just says training on the side, that's the 2.0. So mine might look a little different than yours. Training 3.0, that's what it says right there. So that might be some of the difference. All these notifications have been set up kind of for me individually for my department. My department's a little unique in the fact that we do a lot of what Tom was talking about, where I will actually schedule a training for folks, have them go out and do the training, and then they'll complete it. And that's usually done from a template. If I don't schedule them a training, then they will make it up on their own and input it and kind of create a class from scratch. We're trying to get fewer and fewer of those in there, but it's easier on me as I'm starting to build this program to start allowing them to do that. So just to kind of take you through a few things on training 3.0 and how we set it up, I'll click into there and we'll get it going. One thing that I did notice on this was your browser can be a little funny. So sometimes you might need to switch across to different browsers. You can see I've got a couple of them. I don't know if you guys can see the bottom of that screen or not. But you've got a couple different browsers, so I can go back and forth. I know Internet Explorer 11 is kind of plagued with problems all across the board. I don't care what site you go to, it's kind of an issue. Chrome seems to work pretty well. I've had a little issue with 8.1 being Windows 8.1. However, you know, the great thing about emergency reporting, the reason we've been with them for 9 years is, man, if you call them or if you talk to them at FDIC or if you talk to them, I talked to them at FRI when they're in Denver, and man, what do you know? They actually put it in and they actually did what I asked them to do. So, I mean, that's phenomenal. It becomes a customizable training just for us, just for your department. So coming in here into our settings, we'll go straight into the settings the way that Tom did. It does look totally different. The settings portion is totally different than the training 2.0. So once you jump in here, one thing you'll notice is Tom talked about all these categories should be short. Well, sorry, Tom. This is the way it was. It jumped from 2.0. So why did that happen? Training 2.0, it migrates all of your class categories into 3.0, but it does not take any of your code categories or your training codes. So what's happened is all these categories have jumped in from training 2.0. And once all those categories jump in here, now it looks like this. This is exactly the same as 2.0. It's exactly what I had in my 2.0 for the training categories. Once we get in here, it's all there. Anything that has a trash can next to it, I can delete it. If it doesn't have a trash can next to it, if the trash can is kind of that silhouette version there, not the full darkened trash can, that means there's something attached to it, so I can't get rid of it. I can't archive it or do anything in that area. So what I've done and what I've chosen to do is kind of set up this way and allowed training 2.0 to migrate directly into 3.0. It's natural flow, it's natural process. And then I can go in and actually develop my training code categories. So I don't want to get rid of and change anything like this until I'm done with my ISO audit, just in case I have to go back into there. All right. One thing I've been doing with the training 2.0 to 3.0, and I would suggest this to everybody, is I've gone down and actually downloaded an Excel spreadsheet of all of my old training. So I ran reports, the reports that I liked, all my favorite reports. I actually downloaded those and put those into an Excel spreadsheet and saved them. I've also printed them and created a book. So I've got every year into a book and done it that way, just for some of my guys that they're more paper people than paperless folks. So we've done it that way. That way we actually have all the training, so I can go back. Now, in the future, I'll go through and clean all this stuff up. So going into our code categories on here, like what Tom talked about, here's my code categories. This is where I got very specific. And due to some of my favorite ports that I ran from version 2.0, this is the way that I like setting it up. So here in Colorado, we have Colorado Division of Fire Prevention and Control. It switched its name. And these have been transferred over. This Division of Fire Safety is what it used to be called. And then IFSAC, which out here we actually do IFSAC and Pro Board, the two accrediting bodies, the national accrediting bodies there. So anything that they do certification-wise is in here. So I have them set them up that way. Driver training, pretty specific, NFPA 1002. Go in here, and you guys can see it, EMS electives, everything else. And these are all of our categories, okay? Now, once I get into my training codes, it gets a little bit more specific. So I've got a few things in here that we've seen still needs to be cleaned up a little bit, but it's working for us in the past 2.0 system and transferring into that 3.0. So my suggestion on this would be you guys, figure out what works for you and then start cleaning it up. Don't just rush into trying to change everything. Going over to our training codes here. All right. And you can see now these codes, oops. Windows 8, there you go. I don't know if you guys saw that, but so you get in here, we get a little bit more specific. You'll see the category, then you got your code, and now your description. All right, so this is what I'm adding. All right, this is everything in here. This is the way that mine looks currently. It's working for us right now, so I don't want to change it too much. I am in the mix of trying to do that. Our ISO should be happening in a couple months here. In fact, our pre-meeting is next week, so we should be starting up here pretty soon. We go in through our locations, our resources, everything else. Nice thing with 3.0 now is locations are already in there. It makes it really nice to load your locations due to what you guys use, what buildings are around town, what training facilities. We're a pretty small department, one station. We cover 2 square miles of our authority having jurisdiction. Then we cover some outside areas just in the fact that it's county land, unincorporated, and does not have fire prevention or fire protection. So we have quite a few different areas that we use. Some of our resources can be loaded in there. Go all the way across. This is all here. So we get into our task sheets and our task sheet categories. Those have to be built. Again, it's not going to migrate from 2.0 to 3.0. So it's a good time to start building those. And these are some of the things that, it's a good time to clean it up. As you saw mine before, it's kind of busy on that side. So started a few of them on here, some of our task sheet categories, and then our specific task sheets, again, more specific from that point. All right, so has your category and then your specific task sheet. So what Tom was talking about earlier, in the state of Colorado, we have to do JPRs, job performance requirements, and we have to do them for every certification period. So currently, the certification is good for 3 years. So within 3 years, every single one of these JPRs, job performance requirements, has to be filled out and completed in order to certify. We as a department have to keep records on site. Then it gets transferred to the state. Myself, in this instance, the training officer, actually submits a proposal to recertify the person, and I'm stating that they have completed everything. So what I've done is kind of come in here and loaded our task sheets. So if I want to click on my task sheets here, I can open this up. Give me a second here. And kind of what Tom has talked about, we can fill this out. We just did this the other day, so you can come through. These are our JPRs. This comes specifically from the state. So we just got a brand new engine, a nice Pierce Sabre chassis, just put it in service just the other day. So we needed to get our guys out there and qualify them on the apparatus. So we have them go through and do all these. So what we found works the best is actually just go through and do the JPR. So they'll actually print out the JPR and they'll sign it here at the bottom, have everything done. Candidate will sign it, fill out the form completely, and then they can scan it and sign it in, which I'll show you in a second here, onto the training. And it works really, really well. It's something that I actually really enjoy on the 2.0 versus the 3.0 on there. So that's just an example of one. I'm trying to move through here pretty quick as I'm trying to watch a few of these. So
hey, Chris, it's Tom.
We got our general settings in there, and that's what Tom talked about. Hey, yeah, what's up?
That's all right. We got a little delay. Hey, this is fantastic. The explanation has been great, Chris. As you wind down, what I'm going to do is segue over to me, and I'm going to show them some of the things to consider when they're migrating. So go and take care of these 2 tabs and talk about how you're doing those, and then pass it to me, and then I'll hand it over to Johnny.
Sounds great. Thanks, Tom.
Yep, you're doing awesome. Thanks, man.
All right, so back onto here, we're going into our standards. Again, another great thing I love about Training 3.0 on here is this standards function. I've spent quite a bit of time in here. There's quite a few in here, so we're loading them. You do have to load these. It's pretty easy if you have an account through NFPA online. You can literally just copy and paste the names and transfer them over here. It took me, maybe, I don't know, all of these standards. I've got them all done for everything that we would use currently. All these standards are actually loaded in here. It took me about an hour and a half to get all of them loaded. So that was going through them, making sure we had what we needed. So this is awesome. So what does it all look like once we're done on that? And I will transfer this over to Tom. One more thing is, once I pop into training here, if I want to actually add a class template on here, you can see my templates down there. So if I want to create a quick class, that's where I'm at. I want to do that. Okay. All right. So everything's back on there. This is one that was a test template. So it's going back through. I can go into class categories. Now, this is a new template. If you want to set up a new template, there's a little bit more to fill in. Okay, but it's all inside of there. If you want to set up an existing template, we click on another one and it's all pre-filled. So what I'll do is come back down here and just show you one of my classes that's in process right now. Right here. And all right, so here's one that's already in there. So you go through it, you can see everything's loaded, my standards, my training codes, my resources, everything's done. You notice down here, this is a big point, a big difference between 2.0 and 3.0 is we got 4 hours for each individual category and code. Each one of these has to be set out as its individual hours, okay? Those hours have to be set up in payroll, which you can go through and talk to them about. That's a little different than 2.0 versus 3.0. So these 4-hour categories need to go in. That 4 hours times 3 equals 12. So make sure that they're putting in their 4 hours in here. If you put in 4 hours, 8 hours, 8 hours, you're gonna end up with the wrong numbers. So that was some of the stuff that I learned from on there. This is the way we have it set up. It was a little scary at first, but once you get into it and spend a couple days in there, it becomes second nature. So on that, Tom, I think I'll send it back over to you and let you go from there.
Thank you, Chris. Fantastic job. And I'm really glad you were able to show how you've built each of the tabs, because yours is a working live account for a department that you're responsible for all the training records. And one thing you'll see when Johnny comes on here is that every department's a little bit different, and it doesn't have to be cookie cutter, and this module allows you to set it up the way you and your department needs it. I really like your standards page, and I know your JPR page is going to be just as good. So thank you, Chris, very much. Let me get the screen back, and I want to do a couple things here. Okay. Before we go over to Johnny, I want to show you this little Word document that I put together briefly, and we'll make it big so everybody can see it. These are some things that if you're still on 2.0, and Chris, this is the one thing that was new that we didn't have at Colorado that I learned afterwards was something near the bottom of the list where you wouldn't have that long list of class categories. So I'll explain that here momentarily. So let me make this bigger for everybody. Okay, here's some key things you need to know. Training 2 templates do not come over. Because of how templates are set up in Training 2, it's a completely different programming structure where they just couldn't migrate templates into Training 3.0. Because you'll see templates are very similar to a class, except you can build classes from templates. They're pretty close to being identical, except templates allow you to have a lot of pre-filled fields when you build in a class. No scheduled classes come over, so if you have any classes scheduled in 2.0, those won't come over. Only completed classes will come over, so they've got to be completed classes, and then only completed certificates with good effective dates will come over. So they've got to have an effective date on the actual certificate. And what we do essentially, the little behind the scenes stuff is there's 2 imports that take place. One are your classes that come over, and then the other one is your certificates, because as you know, in Training 2, the certificates were part of the training module, but really, certificates don't go with classes, certificates go with people. So now all the certificates appear in the administration module under the personnel list. But the good thing is that if you've enabled in your system the My Profile tab, your people can see it's in a read-only format their whole history of certificates, both in EMS and fire certificates. So they won't be able to alter it because you want to make control of that, but they can see it, and that's in the My Profile tab. A lot of what Chris also talked about too with building the class, we're going to go step by step next week into building it. So he kind of just whet your appetite for what we're going to do next week. So he gave you a good sneak peek into that. Pending certificate files do come over. So if you have a file attached to the certificate, you're good to go. Those files will indeed come over. Pending certificates or pending certifications won't come over. Completed and expired come over as long as they've been signed off. And we're talking here, these all are related to certificates. Then, this is probably what Chris would have wanted, is that you can delete the old Training 2 training codes and categories. The codes, they're sticky. They're going to stay with the class, but not in the settings tabs. So they'll come over. All your imported class will have all your training codes and categories, but they won't populate that class categories list. The way the mapping is from going from old to new, there's some things that occur there, and that's why when we ran into this with another department, you get this long, unwieldy list of imported classes. But the good thing is you can go in and edit those class categories to rename them if you're inclined to do so. You can also add a new code to a class if desired. So even imported classes, you can unlock them and add new codes to them if you wanted to. So if I know Mark put up a contact there, so if you're ready to go to Training 3.0, contact support. They will help you through everything and get you on the right path to where you can start using 3.0 as good as Chris and as good as Johnny does it. Guys, I know we're going to run over a little bit today, so stay with us because you got to hear what Johnny has to say. He's done an incredible job with his department. But I wanted to cover these essentials today, especially on the settings and then, of course, the migration you need to know. So if you want to migrate sooner rather than later, send an email to support in that message that Mark sent out during the session today. And if, again, I'll remind you too, if you want to be a beta tester for JPR, just email Bob at emergencyreporting.com and he'll get you squared away on that. Okay, that advanced search we'll talk about next week. If there aren't any other questions, again, if you've probably taken a picture of this particular page, we'll also have it in the archives here pretty soon, so you can view it. Okay, closing this out. It's time for Johnny and someone. I know you're hearing a lot of background noise. It's just because we're live here on the floor. I've got the microphone really close to my mouth, and I'm trying to prevent that. But we're going to send it over to Johnny. Make sure he's online and can hear me. Johnny, thanks for being patient, my friend. Are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. I'm going to give you you're going to be the presenter.
All right.
And I'm going to mute my mic so we don't have any background. And why don't you take it away and share your screen and tell everybody how you're working with Training 3.0.
Thanks, Tom. I appreciate it. We started with. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, you're loud and clear.
Okay, good. We started with the ERS program in mid-November, I believe. And so, as you know, it's a blank slate when you start out with it. So there was some time setting up some of the class categories like we had talked about. Well, Tom came down and did the training with us and, of course, was a huge help. And his main thought on it was stay simple. So that's what we did. Stay simple. My main goal as a training officer is to be able to pull reports for ISO. I think any training officer, that should be a very important goal with our training. You got so much daily training, so much monthly training, officer training, apparatus, driver training that you have to be able to prove. And when you set this program up, if you can't pull the right reports and they're not consistent and there's mistakes in it, then it's useless. So my whole goal is to set it up simple and get my ISO reports to be accurate and be able to prove that they're accurate when ISO comes. So that's what I focused on so far. We went live on the training in February, and I actually started using data March 1st is when I started worrying about my accuracy on data. It took we've got a department size of 88, so it's not a large department, but it's not a small department either. But it took them quite a bit of time to get used to going from paper Excel sheets into a program like this. But it's operating great. It's starting to kick along real nice. The reports are looking good. They're accurate. Everybody's catching on. And so far I'm loving it. Still got a lot of work to do on my end as far as being able to track certificates and certified courses, but I do have it built into the system. But I'll show you kind of what I did real quick. It's pretty common sense. Pretty much it's set up to show my reports at the end of the day directly related to ISO for now. So on the class categories, we stayed real simple, tried to cover all of our bases for the admin, airport, community, and this is just stuff that's important to my department. So the airport training for the FAA is important to my department, so I tried to just use the categories that I'm going to need, not try to make it too broad. Then, of course, he said to broaden it a little bit more into your training code category. Some of these I've added in the last couple of weeks even when I started getting the things that I realized I was going to need them and I didn't have it built in. It's simple to be able to add something when you get that point you realize you need it. So I broke it down into the FAA required training, inspector, instructor training, investigator training, specific ISO training, live burns, anything with a live burn, I'll add that code in. And then you get broader as the tree gets taller with our training codes. And you'll see this page gets quite a bit bigger. We're even starting to build our recruit training in. I've got a guy in recruit school right now that we're not actually teaching his course, and I'm tracking his training through this. I haven't put the JPRs, well, of course, I would like to do the beta testing too. I hope anybody that's involved in this would like to do that, but I haven't built in the standards yet. That's the next thing I got to start focusing on. But just see how broad that page can end up being. Locations, you can add those in as you go, and that's what I've done. When I hit a new place, I add the new location, so it's simple. Resources, I haven't done a whole lot with resources yet. Task sheets, we've experimented with our task sheets a good bit. I broke them down into any category I could think of at the moment. If I hit something I don't have in here, I can add it pretty simple. And then we threw a lot of task sheets in. There's probably a lot of these that I really don't need in here, like some of the rules and protocols, but it's in there. Kind of a way we've played with it. You can store PowerPoints in the task sheets. I have to schedule a monthly multi-company drill for each shift, and I schedule the date and the topic, and I give them a lot of hazardous materials topics that to help them do the research. I add the task sheet. I add an instructor's guide, a student manual, and a PowerPoint for them to be able to study with, for them to be able to use during the presentation of the class. They can print the manuals out if they want to, or each student can log into his own and view it on his own laptop. So task sheets are pretty cool. Still haven't played with them enough to realize what I don't need in there yet, but they're easily deleted out of the system. But so far, we love it. I got a long way to go. Like I said, standards, I haven't even messed with standards yet. But what I'd like to see is where I can pull reports for specific certifications. I haven't made it that far yet. My main goal right now is to make sure correct information is being put in accurately and consistently, and it is. But it takes a little bit of time and a little bit of walking before you run. We're still kind of in the trotting stage right now.
Johnny, that's awesome, Johnny. I'm glad you were able to join us today. I was impressed with how you how you embrace this as a new way to manage your training, and how you started to implement it. Because Johnny had a lot of this done before we even left the training site back in December, and I told him I'm going to keep in touch with him because I liked how he was building this. And one of the things, Johnny, if you could mention too, when we were talking with Chief Randall, you guys had planned to roll emergency reporting out over a year, right? And then what changed?
Say again, Tom, you broke up.
Yeah, you guys were planning on rolling emergency reporting out because you're a new customer. You were planning on rolling it out. Chief Randall was saying over about a year, but something changed after the training and because there's so many good key people in your organization that Chief Randall assigned these projects to. So what's the plan now?
Oh, right now we're full live mode, running live completely. It's just so simple. As long as you'll do the data entry and you put accurate data in, and you think about the end. With me, I had to think about the end result. What do I want to print out on the reports? I've got to make sure I include all that. And as long as I'm thinking that way, then there's no reason to not be live right now.
Yeah.
We overlapped our paper data with what we're putting in here for a month, but what I'm getting back is such good accurate feedback that we stopped that at the beginning of March. At the beginning of April. It's a good system as long as you put the time into the data entry, the time into putting the correct information in and using it. Use the whole system. It's there for you. Make it work to your advantage. So there was no reason for us to wait a year. We found this to be real simple. We dove off hard in it. The guys didn't like it for a little bit, but they seem to all be catching on just fine. And you can either write it down and sign it, and keep track of the paperwork, and try to get it turned in right, and then people have to say the papers down, or we can get used to this system, make it work for us, make us more organized, make our reports better and more accurate. When ISO comes, it's going to be so much easier for me than it was. I was pulling thousands of sheets out. They were all put together at a time, and several Excel files printed out. And I can't wait. I can't wait for them to show up now, honestly.
Johnny, this is awesome. I'm glad you were able to share your experience about it, and just wish you continued success with it. And thank you very much for taking time. And I understand it's your day off today, so thanks for doing that. I would like you, could you just go over to your home screen, your welcome page, real quick? I want them to see the message that you've sent out to your department. You probably cleared out your critical messages. Go to your message center real quick and just show them the messages you've sent out. In fact, you know what? I've got it on mine. Let me switch back to me, and that way they can see it, because I think this is a great way you're using to communicate what you're doing in your department from the training division. I'm going to toggle back over to me. I'm going to keep your mic unmuted, and also Chris, I'm going to unmute you. You already are unmuted, so if you want to chime in as we wrap up today with any other comments. But again, kind of tying it all together and how you get this communicated, and like Johnny was saying, sometimes you're going to get some resistance with new things. Change doesn't come easy to the fire service. Either somebody has to get hurt, or somebody has to die for things to change. And hopefully, implementing something like this obviously doesn't require such a drastic a sentinel event in your department. But there's ways to implement it, and I think I need to show you that and how Johnny's doing it, because it's that communication component. So if you notice these messages here he's got, I'm going to zoom in so you can see it. This is how he's communicating, and this is from the training department. Daily training. You can see the messages he's sending, and it's his way of talking to the department, but also using emergency reporting to communicate. So I want to applaud him, congratulate him on that as well. I think he's coming full circle and just making good use of the system, so it's not so painful for those that are resistant to change. All right. Chris, do you have anything to add before we wrap up today?
No, that looks great, man. I like seeing Johnny's stuff. I mean, you guys, we learned so much from each other, so thank you for showing that.
And we're going to keep
doing it.
Yeah,
I was watching Chris, as you learn from your sister departments. I was watching Chris with standards. You'll pick up stuff like that that'll help you out by sharing and talking,
Well, you guys taught me some great things, both on standards and just how you're implementing it in your department today. And I'm glad you were both able to join us. Again, this was a fantastic presentation coming live from FDIC. I know we had a little bit of audio issues, so I apologize for that, guys. I hope you're still able to hear us okay. And again, a big thank you to Chris Ekstrom, Training Officer at Cripple Creek Fire Department. And thank you also to Johnny Phelps, Training Officer and Paramedic out at Anniston Fire. You guys, please, Chris, I know we'll be staying in touch because you're with us now. And then Johnny, please continue to stay in touch. I'll check in with you periodically, and it's very likely I'll be inviting you guys back next week to share some examples of classes you've built in your system. So if you've got time on your calendar next Thursday, you can come join us. And all the participants today, hope you found this valuable. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules. We'll stick around for just a couple more minutes to see if anybody has any questions. Again, just some last-minute reminders here. If you want to be a beta tester, you can go ahead and put your, let's see, hold on one second. Johnny, I'm going to mute you just for a second because we're getting a little feedback. Okay, if you're wanting to be a beta tester for JPRs, go ahead and put your name an email. Well, I got your name, but put your email address saying, hey, I want to be a JPR beta tester. You can do that, and also email bob@emergencyreporting.com. Both places, and that way we'll both make sure you get on that list to be a beta tester. And if you're ready to migrate to Training 3.0 now, the post that Mark put up earlier is all the contact information you need. But surely if you go to support@emergencyreporting.com, they'll be able to help you out and get you migrated. If there's no other questions, we'll go ahead and close it out for today. I see one. I don't know if this got answered from Roger out in Arizona. Right now, he's asking, can training information be shared between fire departments like in the occupancy module? That is some great foresight and thought there. We've talked about this, Roger, and at the moment, no, but stay tuned. In the middle distant future, something similar like that may be coming down the pike, and we're hoping something that can definitely occur, because we talked about this in Colorado. If one department can build up all the training codes and another department builds the JPRs, why not share them if you're going to be using the same ones and you're both on emergency reporting? We recognize the need there, and that is being discussed right now. So I'm hoping that answers everybody's questions. Again, thank you for joining us. We're going to close out this session live from FDIC 2014 in Indianapolis, Indiana. And big thanks once again to Chris and to Johnny for sharing their experiences with Training 3.0. And with that, I wish you a safe shift, everybody, and we'll see you again same time, same place. Well, I won't be in the same place, but you'll all be in the same place, and we'll do this again next Thursday. We'll double check as we close out. No other questions? It's looking good. All right, we'll call it a wrap. Take care, everybody.
Take care. Thank you all. Stay safe.